Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed since last time. Royal baby fever. Hey, look! 2 rich people who contribute nothing to their country other than gossip and a misdirected sense of pride derived from a rightly abandoned tradition of autocracy procreated. Isn't it wonderful? You know, whatever. Let me know if Pippa does something crazy. You thought you were going to see more of the cat, didn't you? After the opening? Well, the cat's gone. Weiner Gate 2, the Weinening. You know, I was ready to sit here and tear this Weiner prick a new asshole over this latest scandal. I prepared this whole tirade about how the people of New York City deserved better as a candidate for mayor than some irresponsible narcissist who compulsively sends people pictures of his dick. And I was going to go after the media, too, for paying so much attention to this story, for favoring sensationalism over substance, that whole bit. But then something stopped me, and that something was Carlos Danger. Weiner sent this latest round of Sex Pistol selfies under the name Carlos Danger, and maybe it appeals to my sense of the absurd. I don't know, but I find it really difficult to stay mad at somebody capable of giving themselves such an outrageous and hilarious pseudonym. Although it must be said that Carlos Danger is an unfathomably stupid son of a bitch. Republicans threaten to shut down government rather than fund Obamacare. A group of Republican senators has threatened to block passage of another continuing appropriations resolution, which would effectively shut down the federal government when the current continuing resolution expires, if the new resolution contains any language approving funding for the Affordable Care Act. The threat has been met with disdain by members of Congress from both major parties, including Republican Senator from North Carolina, Richard Burr, who called it, quote, "the dumbest idea I've ever heard of." The dumbest idea he's ever heard of. Again, he's from North Carolina. Take a moment, let that sink in. Paranoid conspiracy theorists predict Obama will start civil war. Eric Rush, columnist for WorldNet Daily and frequent critic of the commie radical many conservatives imagine Barack Obama to be, appeared on True News, the hilariously titled radio program hosted by his fellow hysterical paranoiac Rick Wiles, to discuss the president's imminent but yet to be implemented plan to lead a Marxist revolution. Rush and Wiles took turns congratulating each other for correctly predicting Obama's to-date non-existent overthrow of American democracy, and to me, my favorite part of the conversation, the real highlight, was when Wiles claimed that Obama's supporters had painted him as the next Abraham Lincoln because Obama's agenda included starting a civil war in the United States. You know, like Lincoln did when he seceded from... You know what, that doesn't sound right. I'll Google it. Racist fear-mongering from the right. In the wake of George Zimmerman's acquittal for the killing of Trayvon Martin, the black community here in the U.S. has reacted with a mixture of weary sadness and steely resolve, favoring peaceful demonstrations and calls for political reform over the violent riots that some expected prior to the verdict. But that hasn't stopped some of my fellow white folks from deciding to freak out anyway. And perhaps the worst, at least the worst sounding of the pale-skin panic since the Zimmerman verdict came from Eric Rush's fellow WorldNet Daily columnist and alleged musician Ted Nugent, who implied that Trayvon Martin's upbringing was responsible for his death and wrote, quote, "Why the nasty, creepy-ass cracker racism and impulse to attack? Where does this come from? Is it the same mindless tendency to violence we see in black communities across America, most heartbreakingly in Chicago pretty much every day of the week? Where does this come from?" So it's understandable for someone like George Zimmerman to assume the worst of someone like Trayvon Martin, but when someone like Trayvon Martin assumes the worst of someone like George Zimmerman, well, that's just racism and mindless tendency to violence right there. This is why I consider Ted Nugent to be not merely a creepy-ass cracker, but a stupid ass cracker as well. The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time.